We'll get back there.
All right, welcome to I Wrestle Potentially Dangerous. I'm Tony Hager, going to be joined here by Josh Schamberger with the Iowa City Visitors Bureau. And we've got the World Cup coming, right? We've got Freestyle World Cup coming. We've been talking about it on the show. You've been seeing Josh on multiple media outlets talking about why you should be coming back to Iowa City for freestyle wrestling. I know it's folk style season. We're here. People are excited for wrestling tournaments, right? We've got some junior high meets going on. We've got some high school duels that are be coming up for women's wrestling. Very first women's duel will be on November 14th. High school boys season starts on November 14th. So lots of exciting things happening. But one of the biggest things that are happening on the freestyle scene mid-season, I guess you could say, for college wrestling fans is going to be the World Cup. And the main reason why I'm excited about the World Cup coming is obviously the talent level is going to be top notch. It's the best in the country. They're representing the United States for a reason, but it's for me, it's for you to bring your little one to that wrestling event, that venue, and show them what it takes to be a guy like Jordan Burroughs. Right, to be on that women's team, to be on that national team, to be fighting for world golds. That's the pinnacle of our sport, right? Needing a role model. And in other sports, we've got NFL, we've got the NBA, we've got the MLB. Easy to find those people, right? All over the country, those type of events. But in wrestling, we don't really get those opportunities as much, unless you travel a lot, and a lot of times, obviously, people are doing their best to bring stuff to the Iowa area, but we don't know when these things are coming back. So Coralville is going to be the place to be in the second week in December, right? For the World Cup, and wanted to bring Josh Schamberger on to figure out why if you're on the fence, figure out why you're on the fence, why you need to be buying tickets, and you're no better person to bring in on the show than you, Josh. So I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. It's good to be in Des Moines. My second home. I love the city here and everything they do here, and I love coming here for wrestling as well. We were just here a couple weeks back.
What were you here for?
Preseason Nationals.
Oh, preseason Nationals. You came down?
Yeah, USAW, yeah. So,
okay.
Popped over and visited with Pete and that entire team because, they're going to be back in a month. And once that wrapped up, we took a full trailer of their stuff over to Coralville to get ready.
Okay.
So, yeah, you're right. It is the start of folk style season, and we're talking freestyle, but everybody that certainly watches your program and is a big fan of everything you've done with I Wrestle and the state of Iowa has heard of these guys and has heard of these women, right? So these used to be and still are considered some of the best folk style wrestlers that have ever laced them up. And now they're wrestling freestyle. And so when you hear the names Jordan Burroughs and Kyle Snyder and even currently Yanni Diakomahalis, Seth Gross, all those folks up and down the line, they're going to be coming here. And they're going to be wrestling and putting it on the line as a team, not an individual, but in a dual team format against the best in the world that were just qualified when we were over in Serbia.
And for those that of you are maybe are familiar with going to like a high school duel and you like that duel format, you like it being really intense and you're not so like the tournaments are just kind of hard for you to follow, maybe follow hard to follow the scoring or whatnot, and you're just there to watch your individual. Like the dual format is just it's just a different
Yeah.
atmosphere. And you've brought tournaments to the area, but is there a different feeling bringing in these different countries for a dual format than something else?
Yeah, just as you described, the dual format, first to six, right? Unless you get a 5-5 criteria type deal. So it's a big time deal, and it is a definitely different environment. The World Cup Greco just took place this past weekend in Baku, Azerbaijan, and we're hosting the World Cup freestyle, and for the first time in history, the women's wrestling freestyle. So the men and women will be competing in the exact same event for World Cup titles. And this will be the first time also in history that the United States has ever hosted the Women's World Cup. So we're super proud of that. That took a lot of work to get that done. We hosted this event in 2018. It was just men. There's been some format changes to the way it's going to work. And in addition to adding women, which we're super proud of, they're adding an all-world team. And the sixth team in both divisions is the highest ranked wrestlers in the world that aren't part of the qualifying 5 nations. Those rosters are already out. If you look at just the men's side, the lowest place finisher on the men's team is the heavyweight from Ukraine. He finished 5th. Every single person on men and women medaled at the World Championships. That team is absolutely stacked, and certainly they're going to be coming for the reward. There's the prize money.
Yeah.
They're going to be wrestling hard.
So when you talk about prize money, I mean that's kind of that's a new thing in wrestling where if there has been some prize money, there's been some one-off events, right? Like Aegon and stuff. There's some publicly stuff saying that they were making some money. Rockfin has put some stuff together where some teams have gotten some money. So, what does that prize money look like for these countries? Because maybe that just hasn't been talked about a whole lot, but that I think that makes the event even more intriguing. Because in wrestling, we compete for pride and
Yeah.
we compete for medals, which is obviously what we want in our sport. But at the end of the day, money changes the sport.
Yeah.
It does. Like if you won the NCAA championships and Iowa Hawkeyes won $1 million, like people would be a little bit more intrigued by winning that championship, right? Or in professional wrestling, if we had that, right? People like money, like betting on the sports. But how does that work with the cup? Is that something that you guys are able to raise on your own? The Iowa City Visitors Bureau, you guys raising money for that, or is this UWW? Is this USA Wrestling? How's that all come into play here?
It's part of the bid fee. In order to put on the event, you have to come up with it's about 100,000 Swiss francs on the men's side and 100,000 Swiss francs on the women's side, and that's prize money that goes to the top 3 teams. There's a lot of other expenses associated with putting our World Cup, which is why we're one of the only places truly in the world, certainly North America, that's able to put something like this on. We have a very loyal fan base, not just Hawkeyes, but Cyclones and Panthers too, who love their wrestling and want to attend these events. And so our model looks a little different than what Serbia just did or what you see in Paris or Bulgaria and Budapest and some of these other places. And it works, but they're coming, and those wrestlers certainly are coming to wrestle for some of that prize stake. Certainly, in addition to the pride of their nation's flag being on the top podium at the end of the dual tournament.
With your experience in working with the different countries, outside of USA Wrestling that you're working with, I've seen that there is prize money for from the men and women to make some of their world teams. I mean, we've seen some of them are getting vehicles when they win gold. In the United States, we have some of that. We have the gold fund now.
Yeah.
But these other countries are used to getting. It's a different world over there. They're absolute rock stars over there around the whole country, not just like. They're the football players that we have here.
Yep.
Is that safe to say?
There's no question that's safe to say. In a lot of these countries, outside of football, soccer, wrestling is one of their national pastime sports. Certainly that's the case in a lot of Eastern European countries. Russia and Iran and a lot of these countries. It's wrestling, and we're just not obviously there yet as a nation of being one of those sports, but where everybody's collectively building every day, and it's getting more and more attention. And I think the proof is in the pudding there when you see what Team USA just did in Serbia. So it's an exciting time to be a wrestling fan. It's also an exciting time if you want to just get introduced to the sport. And there's no better way than a month from now, when we run down the nations of who's actually coming. I mean, we're talking between 18 and 20 countries will be here. And some of these delegations are quite large. I'm on the phone at midnight and 2 a.m. with the team leader of Kyrgyzstan or Mongolia or my buddy Saeed in Iran, going through some of their needs as it relates to visa letters and passing that along to Christina and Pete, who are kind of helping with that from USA Wrestling. So it's a big time deal and huge opportunity for wrestling fans to see the world and the world's best right here at home.
And for how long is it going to be? Another 2 years? 2 years?
We initially were awarded a 2-year contract.
Okay.
We hosted this in 2018, and it worked well, and everything did good. But then we asked for them to consider some changes, some modifications. And we've just put a proposal in front of them and said, you can make this such a better product if you put the women on the same stage as the men. We're all about talking about equity, but let's be one of the first sports that truly makes it happen and puts the men on the exact same stage with the exact same prize money as women. And they were very supportive of that and wanted to step up. And I guess since it was our proposal, we were rewarded with doing it for the first couple of years. And we're excited about that. And we intend to create an environment in there that is unlike our goal, as with anything, is whoever follow us to go, yeah, but that was good, but that wasn't Coralville.
Yeah.
That wasn't Iowa City. And we can always have that in the back of their mind when they go to future events, and we're pretty proud and we feel like we did our job.
I mean, a lot of the diehard wrestling fans have been to probably an event at Coralville now at the Extreme Arena, with whether it's the Iowa USA Wrestling State Tournament, the Girls State Tournament. Hawkeyes had that duel that they had, the showdown.
US Open.
You've had some major events, and this thing has been open. Seems like with COVID, like it hasn't really been open that long, but you guys have had quite a few events in there since then, and creating that environment. The fans have to come, right? Yeah. The fans have to come like they would if it was the Hawkeyes wrestling, at Carver, yeah. Right? For a big time duel, it's hard to explain, Hawkeyes versus Penn State. Well, now we're talking, Iran versus United States. Like comparing the two for somebody that just doesn't follow freestyle or international wrestling, it's you gotta. How do you compare the two? Like how do you compare to someone that just hasn't been in that environment? And just get them over the edge to come, right? It's just because it's there. Yeah. It just you just got to get there and experience it.
Yeah, I think there's two fronts on that. The first one is if you have any affiliation or love for the sport of wrestling, it's not overstating it. This is the best wrestlers in the world, the best wrestlers in the world. I was there in Serbia watching all this. I wanted Gilman to win that gold medal match more than anybody. Mm-hmm. He got beat. He got beat by that Albanian. That Albanian's coming to Coralville, Iowa to wrestle. This is the best of the best. And so it's not too often you get to see that. If you're an NFL fan, this is Patrick Mahomes going against Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And it's all day on Saturday, those matchups, 10 weights, 10 matchups, every country. And so from a wrestling fan, it doesn't get any bigger than this. It really doesn't. And then from just a casual fan who's interested in a sporting environment or just the atmosphere, it's not more electric than this. I was just talking to somebody the other day who said, well, what other sports do you kind of follow and get into? And I said, well, one of the sports I recently started getting into is hockey. I've never been a big hockey guy. I just haven't lived in hockey communities growing up. Mm-hmm. We've got an affiliate team that feeds up to the Minnesota Wild through Des Moines, the Iowa Wild. Between the hockey fans and the wrestling fans, I've never been in an environment to where it's more animalistic. You know what I mean? It is totally freaking nuts at times. And so just a casual fan who wants to see, what is this about? Why does everybody see this? This is what you want to see. And you also want to see somebody like Ukraine. Ukraine, everybody knows what's happening in Ukraine right now. It's crazy. It's horrible.
Yeah.
The Ukraine women's wrestling team and the Ukraine men's wrestling team are still competing. They're trying to move on as if life is still going and keeping some spirits high while their country is, in question right now. Ukraine women's team is coming to Iowa. We have over 40 members that just got all their visas. It gives me goosebumps to think about the welcome that we're going to have, that Iowans are going to have when Ukraine comes into that arena and all the ribbon boards and all the end boards and the colors turn yellow and blue. And when they're going to go up there and compete against China or Japan or Mongolian, and you better believe everybody's going to be Team USA, but they're going to be pretty Team Ukraine.
Yeah.
And that is awesome. And I cannot wait for that environment. And I can't wait to, in the all-world team, to cheer on that Ukrainian heavyweight on the men's side who's going to be on there. And there's a lot of those storylines. We want Japan, who's the best women's wrestling team in the world, to show up and to get knocked off by Team USA women in our state and in the heart of our country. That's going to be killer.
And
I mean?
And that
A lot of storylines.
Yeah, and that helps build storylines for people to follow freestyle wrestling in the future, right?
Yeah.
We're struggling to kind of get those fans to come into each other, right? And with over the seas, that we don't have that. We don't have that gap.
Yeah.
So just trying to like marry the two of what people can expect is trying to think of people that are that passionate over there. They're coming, and what are the struggles? I mean, obviously we want Americans there, but is this something that will be heavily traveled from other countries outside of the actual teams? Like, what does that travel plan look like? How do you bring them into an area? I don't know what that looks like for other countries, right? For us, like, we're going, for a casual fan to go over to the Olympics or the Worlds or World Cup, that's not for everyone, right? So what's kind of like the experience in 2018? How do you bring people back again?
Yeah. Well, we certainly had our fans from these other countries that live in America that were attending the 2018 World Cup. I vividly remember a whole army of folks from that have Mongolian heritage coming over from Chicago.
Okay.
And the bus that they rolled in on, and they were ready to cheer for Mongolia. And it was amazing. And we're going to have that again. And as I mentioned, I was just in Serbia and I saw, there's no fans in the world. No disrespect to United States fans. I'm an American, proud American. Mm-hmm. But there's no fans in the world that are as passionate that I have seen are in some of these international events as the Iranian fans. With the vuvuzelas and the singing and chanting. Yeah. It's almost like they practice and they know every song and they're all in unison. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's hard to describe. We're spending a lot of time right now servicing targeted ads to ethnic populations within a 4.5-5 hour drive from all of these nations. And there are strong and proud Iranian populations in the Chicago area, Mongolian populations in the Chicago area, Japanese populations all over, Chinese. There's a good Ukrainian population in Des Moines, Ames area. And so we're trying to do everything we can to make sure that they're aware that their home nation is not only coming to the United States, but coming to their backyard.
Yeah.
And so I think that's fantastic.
It's a unique opportunity for them to see. Yeah.
We got asked early on, are you going to allow vuvuzelas and cowbells in the arena? You bet we're going to allow it because that's the international experience. They can have those big horns and it'll be electric.
Do they not allow that like out in Vegas when they've had stuff like this?
It hasn't been historically allowed. I think we've had some folks get kicked out for having big cowbells in Carver at times. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's fine. A college duel and you got different rules and things, but the international wrestling experience is just so different. Cultures, you want to embrace that.
When you watch international wrestling on streams, you can hear it, right? But usually it's dark.
Yeah.
So like you said, you've been able to experience it, right? Yeah. But you can kind of, I've seen pictures from Tony Rotundo of just them taking pictures of just the fans and whatnot. You can kind of compare it to like watching like the FIFA World Cup or
Yeah.
any kind of like anything international, football, soccer, aka soccer, right? Like those fans are crazy, like just jumping up and down and going crazy. That's what you can kind of like expect, right? Like it's we think American fans are crazy for wrestling, but like that's not really like it's really like down here when it compares to like
Yeah.
international wrestling fans.
It's huge. No doubt. We both experienced it. You know, when you see an Iowa Penn State duel, there are moments there to where you feel like the roof's coming in.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? When Ramos got that fall, I've never heard that building more loud. You know, there's been moments like that over the years. But you're right. In international wrestling in some of these countries, they never sit down. They never stop chanting. And I'm talking for the duration of a session. They don't. But they're also like so incredibly respectful. Jordan Burroughs beat their guy in the finals. The Iranian fan base, standing ovation until he left the building. I mean, just total respect.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when Gilman went over there to wrestle, and I'm seeing photos. He's like Justin Bieber in the middle of fan base. You know, the Iranian fans are there to salute the American wrestling kings. And that's how they're viewed upon in this sport. There's a lot of crazy things in the world and a lot of bad things happening. And I'm certainly on the other side of the Iranian government, a lot of those things, all of those things most likely. But the fact of the matter is these are wrestling fans and athletes, and we can bond, and we can have citizen to citizen diplomacy over a mat.
Yeah. And I remember back in 2018, that was getting them, getting countries over here and competing, was a big deal. Like, some of them didn't want to come, there's that rift between countries. And right now, I feel like we're in a good spot where those aren't issues of traveling, right? So just excited for, sounds like there's no issues, right? For a lot of teams coming in. I mean, there's always going to be something probably, but no barriers right now for any countries.
As of this moment in time, on this date and hour, we are on track to get everybody here. And I feel good about that because we're right at about 30 days out. But you're right. There's always going to be challenges. It's always ultimately up to our State Department. There were some challenges in 18, but those weren't on us as much as it want to be presented by some as if it was on us. The Russians were playing games. I knew for a year they qualified for World Cup. They're the number one team in the world. They decide, and I know for a fact that they start to ask for visa appointments 7 weeks before the event. It's a tough deal.
Yeah.
I get Senator Grassi involved. I still have a letter from the head of the Russian embassy consulate with my name in it, responding to Senator Grassi, talking about it's just impossible to process this many applications at the embassy in the span of 6 weeks and get them in the country. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
We're well on track. That's one of the main reasons I went over to Worlds, was to meet these countries immediately upon qualification. I met with President Dabir, the head of the Iranian Wrestling Federation. It was a little awkward and intimidating when we were meeting. There was a lot of people around. They had a live television camera crew filming our meeting.
Wow.
Which was awkward.
Yeah.
But I tried to ice break him a little bit and hit him in the shoulder and said, "Hey, I just want you to know that Terry Brand says hello." And he was a little taken aback and laughed. And I said, "Yeah, and if you actually commit to coming to Coralville and wrestling in the World Cup, as you're obligated to do by finishing second here, Terry Brands has promised me that he'll wrestle you on his living room floor
yes.
while you're in town."
That's the content we need right there.
Yeah. So, it was good. And I had breakfast with their team leader the next morning, and there were moments it was awkward, and there were moments if you were sitting there at breakfast with us, you'd look at me and you'd look at him and go, neither one of these guys believe a word coming out of the other's mouth.
Yeah.
But that's just the nature of where we're at with society and people, and keep the discussion towards the athlete, the wrestlers, and the match.
Yeah.
And
leave politics. Try out.
They knew right away when Taylor beat Yazdani pretty dang good.
Yeah.
Taylor's a better wrestler. He was better prepared. They're respectful on that front.
So let's back up just a little bit of just anybody watching, I think, is going to be able to say, man, it's like we've seen Josh at some big events and clearly passionate about the sport of wrestling. Because I mean, there's not a lot of bureaus that have someone at the helm that has that passion for wrestling, that, you know, with not growing up wrestling, right? So how did you get to this point of of I mean, obviously getting events outside of wrestling is important to you. You did that like jingle cross or cyclocross,
you
on
said
your,
cyclocross, big deal.
ragbri.
Yeah, ragbri.
But wrestling is what I see. I think what anyone that knows you, like, okay, man, this guy like just loves wrestling. But like, you've got other duties. But you know, how did you kind of this love and passion and understanding how passionate wrestling fans can be, that they know that they will travel well and do well for, you know, your local community?
Yeah. Well, excuse me. It's a combination of things. You know, I grew up, our military bases. I went to a high school that was a wrestling powerhouse, Poway, California, in San Diego. They still are a powerhouse. But I didn't follow my wrestling much. I was more into the beach every day when school got out. So when I moved here and I got this job, obviously it's my job as one of the economic development leaders in our community to bring about positive economic impact to the community. And one of the easiest ways to do that is certainly to leverage the reputation that we have in the sport of wrestling. So we did that, and obviously I immediately fell in love with it. I'm a huge wrestling supporter and fan. I already mentioned some of the connections to Matt McDonough and my family and following him growing up, and got really close to the program and Gable and Tom and Terry. And, you know, it was that day Duro came in and 2008, Mike Duro, legendary coach, human being, mentor, and said, let's go get the trials. And we worked very hard on getting the trials. And I became very close to Gable and Tom and Terry and the entire program, and haven't left. And that's carried forward to welcoming in Terry Steiner and the national women's team camp that year and getting close to a lot of the Team USA women athletes. That's where I first really developed a relationship with Clarissa. And fast forward 10, 12 years, and I'm the first one out there pushing, hey, Clarissa Chan needs to be our coach, to a university administration, and trying to help, make introductions, calling Clarissa on her phone and texting her and saying, hey, you're going to be our first coach. You know what I mean? And just doing what I can to sell.
Yeah.
And, Adeline Gray's most storied, accomplished women's wrestler in the sport for Team USA. And she just had babies. She has twins, and she's not going to be able to be on the team this year.
Yeah.
But I reached out to her about a month ago, and I said, Adeline, we cannot have the World Cup, the first one ever in the United States, and not have you there. We're bringing Adeline here and her family. She needs to be there to watch this. Yeah. She needs to be there to be one of the. Well, she's already the leader.
Yeah,
one of the team leaders. So I can't be more excited to have her there, have Jordan there. I mean, the king and queen of the sport, or however you want to describe them,
absolutely,
are going to be here helping lead us.
The most respectful people
most
in
accomplished.
Accomplished and respected just as human beings, right?
Yeah.
Like we have winners and winners in the sport, and some people just don't demand the respect that those two do, right? Yeah. It's kind of hard to explain, but you don't know it until you see it. So obviously you said the women's is the first time the women's freestyle World Cup has been here in the United States. And just talking about women's wrestling, I can just tell that it's super important to you. It's passionate to you. Where does that come from? I mean, you talked about Matt McDonough.
Yeah.
So was there a moment in your life that was like, man, like this is maybe what I should be pushing a little bit more than men's wrestling, or anything like that triggered?
No, I mean, I have two boys, but I have nieces, and I want my nieces to wrestle. And I've got a really good buddy who's got a little girl named Kona, and Kona's was the in folk style nationals last year was the AUOW. She's a 7-year-old that just crushes.
She's
takes
a beast.
souls.
I know who Kona is.
And I just couldn't be more excited that someday she's going to be rolling out of Carver as a hometown pride. And so, I'm certainly an advocate and strong believer in Title IX and the legacy that Dr. Grant has left across this world and this planet. She's been probably more impactful than national titles and things like that, just with the things that she set in motion. And it's important to me. It's important to our organization. Before it was sanctioned, we were already investing and spending money to try and talk Cody Pugil at West High and a lot of these schools to start girls clubs. I knew it was going to be sanctioned. We were working hard just like you were in Charlotte and everybody else with Gene to get that sanctioned, and I wanted to make sure that the Iowa City schools already had a team ready to roll, start winning titles. So super proud of last year. You were a big part of it. Wrestle was a huge part of it when we all those young ladies officially announced sanctioning, and very honored to carry the torch as the host arena city for the next many years as the official site of the state tournament for girls. So that extends all the way up the ladder to Adeline. I want Kona Hughes to see her as Adeline Gray in about 20, 25 years.
It's crazy how far that sport has came, man. And just in Iowa, for one, I mean, I just looked at the JUCO rankings, and we've got programs that just started in Iowa within the last couple of years, and they're already in the top 10. So, yeah. I mean, the passion is there for women's wrestling. So, this is an opportunity for really for the girls' side too. Talking about find a role model, right, in our sport. This is those opportunities if you're trying to get your daughter out for wrestling, like bring them to this event. And I think that's just a good opportunity. There's lots of opportunities, but this is the one where you can see those stars, like Adeline Gray, just being a face of it. But yeah, I mean, I remember the second year coming back from the IWCOA state tournament, and you called me. It's like, and the building I don't think was done, even close to being done. Like you were kind of in the process of it.
Yeah, it might have been just beginning to open or something.
You thought like by the end of that, by time next year we should get that in an Extreme Arena. I'm like, well, I'm not really involved. I mean, it's not my event. IWCA, like, who do I got to call? Gave you a number. I never heard back from you again. Next thing I know, it's in Coralville. So whatever you did, you got you got
Shell Rock is really to credit. You know, and that whole team up there, Eric, and pioneers. And so it was an easy move. They were way outgrowing their building. Mm-hmm. We were willing to sponsor it, step up and cover the costs and make sure it was in a good place. And thankfully, because the Coaches Association Wrestling and then Waverly, we've helped to get it in a good place.
Yeah. I just saw I'm not a volleyball fan, but I was watching highlights and stuff, and the arena looked pretty sweet. Yeah. Like, I mean, from guys that, you and Eustace, I know are big into the branding and the overall feel as a fan. I mean, that, and then what they do as an organization as well, branding is huge to them. It's a pretty good marriage, and man, that place looked really good.
Yeah, it was incredible. We've just gotten tremendous feedback. But I won't make no mistake, our team was incredibly led by an Iowa girl, Kylie Walker, who works in our sports commission, who's works for Luke, and is just absolutely exceptional. Led that entire way. She's a Johnston girl from 2014 state champ softball. She carried the water on that, and by all accounts, it was probably the best event we've ever put on, and we couldn't be more excited to be able to do that another 9 times or so.
Yeah. And
forever.
She was a gangster at the Donnybrook too. Yeah, like just figuring out wrestling too, And
so. Donnybrook, I mean, all about that. That's the week before. Mm-hmm. First year deal last year. This year we've got, I believe, 30 girls programs, 42 boys programs. It's going to be insane. It's going to be awesome. And so just the growth of having 30 girls high schools there competing.
Absolutely.
Is killer.
Yeah. So that month is pretty crazy.
That month,
last couple of months pretty crazy.
Salute.
And then the Soldier Salute comes in, and so that was going to be the Hawkeye Open last year.
Yeah.
But that's now being rebranded as Soldier Salute, and last year things were just so crazy going on with COVID, and people don't even probably remember it. Just refreshing their minds, like Midlands didn't happen. Then there was a kind of a Midlands, or they took over teams that were going to the Midlands. Then you guys were going to have the Open, and it was
Yeah, we got called.
kind of a stressful time probably for everyone in general, because everyone just wanted to still have the event.
Exactly. I mean, as soon as Midlands canceled, Eustace and I each get called by 3 or 4 coaches and say, we know you have access to that building.
Mm-hmm.
What can you do to throw together an event in 6.5 days and make this happen so we can wrestle? And, knowing Luke and I, we're like, let's do it. What are we going to call it? Well, I don't know. There's the Luther Open. It's here in Hawkeye country. Let's just call it the Hawkeye Open. When we didn't go home, we didn't sleep for the first couple of nights. We're just putting everything together. Okay, get the arena, all this stuff. In the end, some other guys, Willie and Izzy and all those guys, ended up salvaging Midlands by creating another tournament outside of Northwestern. And all those teams who wanted to come and wrestle, fortunately, there was something that was that saved over them. So they were pot committed with travel, with air, with hotels.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we took it as an opportunity to say, you know what, we're going to continue to move forward. I've been in Tom Brand's ear for a long time about, Veterans Days this week. And we've always started with that Iowa City duels. And I've just always had the idea, being a strong military brat and growing up on military bases, that I would love to see Iowa celebrate Veterans Day week by welcoming in the academies every year and getting all those future service members the chance to come to wrestle in Wrestling Town, USA, and wrestle against the Hawks. I mean, that just makes me super pumped.
Yeah.
And so it's just never been able to work out because of scheduling. It's not. Tom's always been
hard.
Super fan of it.
Yeah.
So I said, this is when we're going to do it. We're going to call it Soldier Salute. We're going to give the money to USO Iowa, and we're going to give the women's side to a fund to help girls programs around the state and country. And we're going to do it. And so we got half the academies coming this year, and we've got a lot of big name schools coming. UNI is going to wrestle in it, which is great. Everybody wants to see some UNI Iowa matches. So we're pumped on that one.
Yeah, that was that was a crazy time of year last year when that was all
you
going.
Were so.
I was bummed.
I was on the phone with you.
I was super bummed, just because we like working out there in Coralville, and obviously the area is just great to bring fans in the event, out of the event, and that was just the opportunity to be able to cover the Hawkeyes at a different level was, it was going to be pretty awesome. But we'll be at the Soldier Salute. Always enjoyed going to the Midlands, and that's probably why Tom and company always want to go out there too, because it's just got a storied tradition, right? Things have changed a little bit out there, and it's had some issues the last years, obviously with COVID and whatnot, and then the facility was getting changed, so it needs a spark plug out there. But you guys are trying to be that spark plug, obviously, here in the Midwest. So that's an event that also you guys are putting up in December as well. So, what going forward? Like, do you, with the university is in the facility, you've got hockey in the facility, you've got concerts now starting to come in. Do you feel like things are starting to open up where the venue is going to get just booked a lot faster, and getting wrestling events in there isn't going to happen as much? Or can you put a couple of weekends aside that potentially could be wrestling events? What's that look like for you guys? Because at the end of the day, you got to have events in that facility, right?
It's getting more and more challenging.